Okay, cool. Hi. Thanks for coming. Do you guys know what we mean by generative BI? Yeah? You got one? Okay, cool. We'll explain that, but it's nice to know, how to tailor the content for the audience. But I'm Sam Dillard. I'm a product manager with PingCAP, and I work on all things related to TiDB. And then we only have one mic, so here. This is the problem. This is my buddy.
This is Ayan, Senior Partner Solutions Architect with AWS.
And so today we're going to talk about generative BI using AWS QuickSight and TiDB. And we'll talk about what generative BI is. This is a generative AI talk. So if that excites you, then good. But it's not a typo. So what we're going to do, I'm going to kind of sandwich Ayan. I'm going to start by kind of laying out a sort of a prediction, but really kind of more of a necessary inevitability, I think, about the way analytics are going to start to look, both internally to businesses and within applications. And then Ayan's going to talk about AWS generative AI functionality, kind of just general stuff, and then kind of emphasize the BI capabilities that AWS offers and how that it plays into business intelligence internally and also in applications. And then I will finish up by talking about the TiDB portion, which is basically how do we think about what the new paradigm means for databases, for the back end? Like when you're doing analytics, what does that mean for how you store your data underneath these BI tools or applications? So, no, I gave it away. Anyways, okay, this is an interactive session. So does anyone know what happened in 2017? Yeah, this is an AI. The context is AI. So does anyone know what the transformer is, the transformer architecture? It's the thing that changed all of our lives. It's what ChatGPT is based off of. Came out in 2017, a paper written by people at Google and I think MIT. That paper is what set everything else into motion. So 2018, anyone? People didn't know this, so I'm assuming the rest is not going to be known. But GPT-1 came out. Billions of parameters. These AI models these are the biggest ones we'd seen. Google's BERT was also in 2018, both based off of the transformer architecture. In 2019, GPT-2 came out. 2020, GPT-3 and Facebook's Lambda, Google's Lambda. Google's Lambda came out. I get confused with Llama. 2022, ChatGPT came out. So that's when that's when everyone started really thinking about AI, right? And the way that we can interact with a computer almost as if it's a human, right? Not quite. We all know it's kind of wrong a lot of the time these days. But GPT-4 came out right after that. Lambda 2, Llama, and then Titan from AWS is among the most recent family of AI. All of this is generative AI models, and they're all based off of this architecture here. It's not this toy, because that came out in the 80s, but the architecture for AI. So 2025, this is what I think it's going to look like. So if you find me on the street in 2025 and it doesn't look like this, I owe you my next paycheck, because I believe it. But in 2023 and onward, the thing is that everybody who has ever had questions of their business data or the data underlying any application they're using can start to become their own analyst, right? No one really thinks about analytics when they're using an application. You're using LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or Slack, right? No one's really thinking about what questions can I ask of those applications, but we have the technology to ask questions of those applications now, and as if the application were just a coworker of ours, right, or a friend of ours. So this technology that we're going to talk about is going to enable you to be like Tony Stark right there, pretty much all the time, if you want to be. So this takes two forms, or will take two forms, and it's currently taking this form in a lot of places. This form coming soon, and sort of there's inklings of it now, but basically the user, an end user of any application, whether it's a BI application or some other consumer application, has questions, right? They ask the questions of the application in their natural language. It can be English, Chinese, Hindi, it doesn't matter, right? And then on this side, there's internal business data that's gathered in like a data warehouse, a lake house, data mart even, these terms, some of them I don't even really know, but this stuff is made by data infra people and data engineers to serve these applications. But instead of writing SQL, non-technical users can now skip over the whole, like creating a ticket for business intelligence people, data engineers, their analytics people, and just ask the question right away ad hoc and get the answer within 10 seconds. And then over here, this goes to like when you're using, you might be using Salesforce, you might be using Slack, you might be at home using Instagram, whatever it is. You can start asking questions of the applications as long as they're willing to provide that feature for you. And I see no reason why Momentum wouldn't force every application to provide that once a critical mass of them start doing it. So these are the two options. And this is an example of the latter. So this is an application that you might be using. This is an application written by us called OSS Insights, which is, sorry, the GIF is very fast. It's just looping. But basically, this is an application that has GitHub data from the whole world. And if you cared about what's going on with GitHub, you can just type in a question here that says pull request amount each month. It's a very basic kind of meaningless question there. But you can ask this question of this application, knowing kind of what data it stores, and get a visual representation of an answer to your question. And so I think people generally have seen this stuff today. It's pretty basic today, but it's getting better really, 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 really fast. And the same kind of interfacing with data also applies to business intelligence. So with that, I will hand it over to Ayan to talk about how AWS.
So hello, everyone. Thank you, Sam. It was a great introduction. So generative AI, right? How many times a day are you hearing this term? Craze, right? What can we do? It's been the buzzword since last year, right? Especially after the invention of ChatGPT. And rightfully so, because it truly has the potential to change the way we work and even we live, right? So what is generative AI? Like any other AI, right? It is powered by machine learning models, very large models this time, right? Which are trained on a vast corpora of data, right? And the recent advancements in machine learning, especially what Sam was talking about, if you have read the paper, attention is all you need, right? It's a very famous paper by the Google brain. Specifically the invention of transformer-based neural network and the self-attention mechanism, which has led to the massive rise of these models with hundreds of billions of parameters, right? We are now having models with maybe 170 billion parameters. And also, not to mention the advent of cloud computing, right? Because otherwise, it would never have been possible to attain this utopian state, as I call it, because without the such powerful machines, it would not have been possible to train or infer these models. But what is so special about generative AI? We had predictive AI, everyone knows about it. The cool thing about generative AI is that it can generate, it can create content like stories, conversations, images, videos. And interestingly, this all has been monopoly of us humans. For example, storytelling. It's one of the powerful artifacts that we human beings have. We have written like so many stories, poems, novels, and not only literature, it's equally applicable in the world of data where we belong, where I come from. Like, what's data? Data are nothing but summaries of thousands of stories. And you need to tell some of those stories to help make the data more meaningful. Otherwise, what's it worth? Right? For example, imagine that you have access to a dashboard. Right? We all have seen a dashboard. But the story doesn't end there. And because you cannot hand over the dashboard to your executive and say, go, take a look at it. Right? You cannot. It doesn't work that way. To drive actions, that's what it's meant for, to drive business decisions. you need to be able to extract the insights from these dashboards and share it with people in a narrative format, in the form of a stories, right? And that drives business decisions. But that's not easy, right? First of all, it takes significant time to do that. And that's not the most important thing, but the most critical thing is it requires sophisticated skills, right? To be able to extract the insights from these dashboards and convert it into a narrative format which can drive business decision. That's why we created AWS QuickSight, our unified BI service, and we created it with a vision to share insights across an organization so as to ensure that all decisions in an organization are data driven. And it aims to reduce the BI silos, right, with the help of interactive dashboards, paginated reports, embedded analytics, and natural language processing. And most importantly, it helps you to scale from 0 to thousands of users. And you don't need to set up, configure, or manage your own servers. It's completely serverless. And soon, QuickSight is coming with what we are calling a generative BI feature, as a result of which it will help you in the entire spectrum of BI, starting from data preparation to dashboard building to data analysis and creating and sharing of stories. What you will be able to do is you'll be able to create visuals through a visual authoring experience. You'll be able to refine or fine tune those visuals. You'll be able to ask questions to QuickSight about your business, right? It can be like somewhat vague questions like, hey, tell me about my top customers, right? Or it can be very specific questions like, tell me about my total sales in San Antonio for 2019 by month. And last but not the least, it helps you to create and share stories, but importantly, with the right governance mechanism, so that only right people have the access to sensitive data. Double clicking a bit on it, let's talk about business analysts. Any business analysts in the room? Oh, okay, cool.
Well, everyone is now.
Yeah, everyone's now. Okay, great. So, like, what do business analysts want, right? They want and correct me if I'm wrong, usually business analysts want an easy way to create visuals and display data, right? And analyze on top of it. One of the aspects of it, right?
We also work on business transformation.
Yeah.
And requirements elicitation and many other things. But yes, one of the use cases is data analysis, data visualization by business intelligence analysis, including instructions for business transformation to generate data, including data mapping and data composition, with preparing rough and visualized layers, and then feed the BI and explain clearly what business decisions could be made by reviewing these diagrams.
Excellent. Yes, that's what business analysts want. And what if, we thought, what if, right? We can make this process easy, right? And it's hard to get easier than giving these instructions in natural language, right? What if we design an interface where we can give this instruction, create this visual for me, right? Create a pie chart for me using this data, right? And we are coming up with that feature in the form of generative BI in QuickSight, right? There's a feature called QuickSight Q, which already helps you to do natural language processing. It will be powered by large language models, and you can now give instructions. You can just tell that in natural language. So as long as you can express what you want in English in a natural language, it can do the job for you. I'll take questions at the end. Next is we can create stories out of it, right? So as long as you are able to express what story you want to tell in natural language, QuickSight can create that for you. And not only stories, right? You can even create calculations out of it, the business transformations, part of business transformations. And once it generates the story, you can customize it, right? Say, make this paragraph shorter or expand this paragraph, like change this from a bulleted list to ordered list or a numbered list. You can do that. Last but not the least, while we are doing so, I'm stressing on the fact that we put right governance mechanism in place. First of all, your data remains private to your environment, and your data will never be used to train the base LLMs, right? Next, it's coming with the vast experience of Amazon and QuickSight, and we are taking all the mechanisms to reduce model hallucinations, right? And make sure that LLMs, this piece of technology, also works on calculations. And all of this is powered by Amazon Bedrock, our fully managed generative AI service, which makes available foundation models from leading AI startups and Amazon available via an API call. So you can choose the foundation model, and you don't need to limit yourself to only one. You can choose the foundation model which best fits your use case. Advantages? Number one, it's serverless. Right? So you don't need to manage and maintain infrastructure because it's an undifferentiated heavy lifting for you. I'll take questions. Yeah. And also the recording will be available. Yeah. So yeah, it's serverless. You can call via an API. You don't need to maintain and manage servers. Next, flexibility, right? We are making foundation models available from leading AI startups like AI21 Labs, Anthropic, Stability AI, and of course Amazon, all through that API call, right? So the API, the code that you are writing will also be applicable to all these models, right? So it's a single interface, and you can choose from leading foundation models, because one model might work for one use case, right? And the other model maybe one model is good for writing blogs, the other model might be good for chatbots. Third, we make sure that as I was saying, right, we'll never use your data to train the base LLMs, right? And also, you can privately customize the model, still being your own VPC, right? Also, it comes with the security and privacy which you are already familiar with. Number one, it comes with private link, right? It comes with IAM controls, and the models will be encrypted using KMS encryption. And of course, you can already use the other AWS ecosystem. For example, if you're running machine learning experiments using SageMaker, you can continue using so and like make use of that and call Bedrock. So these are the models that will be available, the foundation models that will be available in Bedrock. So we'll have two models from Amazon. It's called Titan Text, which is for text generation, and Titan Embeddings that can convert a natural language text into a vector representation. And we'll have the leading models from of Jurassic 2 from AI21 Labs. We'll have Claude from Anthropic. We'll have Stable Diffusion from Stability AI.
So I wanted, so thanks, Ayan, for the layout of the Gen AI and Gen BI. That is all, we're talking about the sort of end user experience, and then like from the developer experience, we're talking about how AWS can enable that with all the services. There's a ton of stuff in Bedrock, so check it out. We'll have a link later. But I want to talk about the most of the back end, right? Like we're talking about building these applications, so the application is going to have a stack. And what does an AI application look like? Well, in the generative AI sense, and this is an AWS concept, is this foundation models. This is a very, very, very basic version of what an AI application might look like behind the scenes. So I'm going to explain the components first and then talk about the flow. So in the back, you've got your data structure, your database. typically people are using these applications for doing like document retrieval. You give it a bunch, like a private corpus of text as context, and then it speaks to you in the context of that text that you gave it. So that can be private to your business. It can be your own diary, whatever, right? You know, family members talk to you, right? If you're long gone, your diaries can become you. But in this case, we're talking about structured data, relational databases, data warehouses, this kind of thing. And so that's what these databases would be. The problem with that is that when you're writing natural language and want that to become a query, that has to be correct. So we need a layer here that basically provides semantic meaning from your language to SQL. So this is a part, this metadata catalog is sort of a basic version of doing that. This is information that you will pass into the LLM that basically generates an answer for you. But you pass this with the question, right? The user asks the question, and then your application will pass in the necessary information to get the query right. Then your application will take the query generated from here with AI, Gen AI, and ask the question of the database. The database will give you the correct answers back, and then you can pass that back through the model to get basically a conversation going, where basically you're talking to what seems to be like a human who just happens to know all of the data you have in your business. So with that, there's ways that the backend and experience can kind of look multiple ways. You've got your application, which is going to be probably a transactional application. Most applications are. That face an end user. So your user is going to be doing things, creating orders, removing and creating inventory, whatever the application does. And you have your relational database here. And in order to support analytics, historically we need to put data into a new form, into a columnar data store over here. And that requires moving data from the facts tables to the transformed tables into a data warehouse, data lake, lakehouse, or an OLAP system of any kind. And there's a better way to do it. But this is a way to do it, and the applications will start to generate these SQL queries from your natural language. But because we're embedding this stuff into applications, and Amazon QuickSight BI, Generative BI, can be embedded into applications too. So either whether you're doing internal BI or literally just asking applications questions, this is what can happen, right? You can put all of your data in one single database sitting underneath your application that will serve your transactional workload and give you your analytical workload at the same time. So when you're asking questions, you're doing your normal stuff in the application, and then you're asking questions about what you and other people are doing in the application in an analytical way. That question turns into a query, but you don't need to write this stuff anymore. You just write this stuff. And so in order to do that, we have to solve the problems that the ETL architecture was trying to solve, where you move data from the upstream database to the downstream. So, oh no. That's out of order. Sorry. This is the architecture of TiDB. So TiDB, with my last 90 seconds probably, TiDB is a disaggregated SQL database, distributed SQL database. So its core purpose is to scale with your business and handle transactional data and be ACID compliant, have strong consistency and durability, and scale rights, which is these are all things that are very, very hard to do in SQL with historical SQL databases. The part I want to emphasize here is that in disaggregating this, we have two forms of storage. So this is the compute layer, and here is the row-oriented store that handles the transactional processing. Over here is this optional storage engine called TiFlash, which is a columnar storage engine that you can opt into deploying with your system. And TiDB server, this is the namesake, is smart enough to take in a query, whatever, take in some SQL, and doing some internal math, figuring out which part of every query should go to the row-oriented store or to the columnar store. So these applications that are now serving random analytical queries that they can't predict because they don't know what users are thinking, they don't know what questions users want to answer about their own data, they need to be able to support not only the application data, but they need to be able to support whatever is coming through the other side when people want to ask questions of their data. And so this is the only solution that really does that. without ETL, without moving data from one system to another. This is all the same system. So what used to be, you put a MySQL backend behind an application or a Postgres or something like that to handle transactional workloads and then do analytics somewhere else. You can do the same thing. You can add in a MySQL compatible database that not only scales but also handles the analytics that are that this new paradigm of application building is introducing to the world. So to wrap up, I'll just skip the other slide if we don't have time for it. But basically, there's a new paradigm, right? Users are becoming their own analysts. They're not technical. They don't understand SQL, and they don't need to write their own SQL. They can just ask questions literally and pretend as if, or have an experience as if their internal BI system or their application is another human that just has a context that they want to understand. And AWS offers generative BI tools and AI tools in general, so you don't need to do SQL or SQL chaining or anything like that. You can do all sorts of other AI applications. And then because this paradigm involves, it's holding on to the idea of transactions and needing to scale those transactions, but it's also just adding an entirely new data set and new workload of this random analytical processing. You need a new type of database, right? A database that's designed for both workloads at the same time. So that's pretty much it. These are you guys are taking pictures, so that's good. But if you want to learn more about what Amazon offers as their suites of foundational models, the Bedrock is a great place to shop there. And then Amazon QuickSight is what he talked about in depth there. And then of course TiDB, PingCAP.com/TiDB to learn more there. And that's it.